Hello there everyone, this is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth TV. As the acceleration towards a New World Order agenda continues, the current ruling elite have been using criminal elements within their intelligence agencies to carry out false flag attacks in an effort to gain order out of chaos and to convince you to go along with it. The term false flag attack was derived from the military, and it amounts to a psychological operation where an attack is carried out, but the attackers bear the flag of another country, group, or individual in an effort to frame their political enemies to gain more control. In the late 20th century, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel described this technique in a three-step process whereby there is a thesis.
Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised,
which then generates the desired antithesis.
The United States and our allies are authorized to use force in ridding Iraq of weapons of mass destruction,
both of which will lead to an eventual synthesis, as was the goal all along.
My fellow Americans, major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Today it is more commonly referred to as problem, reaction, solution. But for those who know their history, this is certainly nothing new. In every government and every civilization that has ever existed, it has always been the authoritarian cabal or the ruling elite who benefit from horrendous acts of violence. In the year 64, Nero, Emperor of Rome, destroyed most of his empire in the Great Fire of Rome. The self-inflicted wound was blamed on the Christians, who were then slaughtered by the thousands, paving the way for Nero to gain more control over the Roman Empire. On February 27, 1933, a horrific fire consumed the Reichstag building of the German Parliament, which gave rise to the Nazi regime and placed more power in the hands of Adolf Hitler. False flags have consistently been used over the years to manipulate a population into freely giving up their freedoms. On September 11, 2001, two planes managed to destroy 3 buildings in New York, from what we are told was due to fire. The ensuing wars in the Middle East and the Orwellian control grid that followed has only benefited the global elites and the puppet governments they control. In June of 2010, the Canadian people experienced the false flag scenario firsthand as fire consumed police cars in an epic symbol of disorder, which resulted in the largest mass arrest in Canadian history and the complete annihilation of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. When you consider the history of false flag attacks, both old and new, it becomes clear that there is no question the current power-hungry control freaks will try new tactics to gain order out of chaos. The year is now 2012, and false flag firepower can come in many forms. The recent Colorado theater shootings by suspected shooter James Holmes occurred under extremely questionable circumstances. New threats of fire are coming in the form of chemical weapons, as the Al-Qaeda-led rebels in Syria are gearing up for a false flag chemical attack, which would be blamed on the Assad regime in an effort to gain control of Syria.
Bashar al-Assad is willing to use chemical weapons in the fight against the rebels opposed to his government.
Given the regime's stockpiles of chemical weapons, we will continue to make it clear to Assad and those around him that the world is watching and that they will be held accountable by the international community and the United States should they make the tragic mistake of using those weapons.
The use of false flag attacks to gain more control will always be used by the ruling elite. But the one thing they fear the most is an informed population who are able to recognize that they are being manipulated through these false flag fires. Their psychological operations are beginning to wear thin, and when the next false flag attack is orchestrated by our governments, the illusion will be shattered, and a new phoenix will rise from the ashes, truth.